All right, welcome everybody to our first panel of 2022 for Planted Not Buried. I'm Renee Washington, founder and host of this panel of Climbing the Sports Ladder. And I'm so excited today because we have two panelists that are my dear friends and colleagues that will have the opportunity to share advice, perspective, just some things that they've learned in their experiences climbing the sports ladder in their respective sports. So before we let them introduce themselves and share about themselves, I just want to share for all of you that are new to Planted Not Buried, welcome. It is an organization that was launched in December of 2020 with the idea of empowering, educating, and inspiring professionals, business owners, and all that are ambitious and trying to grow in their own respective careers to have an opportunity through resources, events like this, networking, to be able to take that next step in their career. So today for the sports panel, I will be hosting. If you don't know me, not only am I the founder of Planted Not Buried, but also an ESPN reporter, as well as a Fox Sports reporter where I host my show Beyond the Headlines. I work with the Mystics and Wizards. I have my first book coming out as a growing author, and am so excited to have these two panelists today that I can call friends, family, colleagues, coworkers, but most importantly, to my best friends. So I'm going to start off with ladies first, introducing Ashley Baker. Ashley, share a little bit about yourself with everybody else.
Well, thanks for having me, Renee. I am, as she mentioned, Ashley Baker. I am a social media content producer for BetQL. I also have my own podcast called About Nothing But Sports, and I do coverage for the Washington Wizards with Fox Sports 1340 AM.
Awesome. Welcome, welcome. And to Brian H. Waters, our big brother. Go ahead and introduce yourself as well to those that are watching.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for watching. First and foremost, thank you, Renee, for having me on this great STEAM panel. And I appreciate the Planted but Not Buried platform. It's amazing. Allows everybody to grow. I'm Brian H. Waters. I am the host and co-founder, co-host, co-founder, co-CEO of the Wrestling Realm, as well as the associate producer for the Mac Mania podcast, a part of the Ringer Wrestling Network, which is a part of Spotify. So, yeah, and then also I am a social media manager for a professional wrestler and business owner of B Waters Productions, a production, social media, and photography business.
Yes. So if you have heard through the different introductions, one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to have these two on with me is because all three of us work in a variety of different roles within sports. So this idea and concept around climbing the sports ladder is not just specific to one role. There are so many different aspects of the sports industry that you can get into. So what I really loved about the diversity of the three of us is we're all in unique positions, and we've all gotten here through different experiences and honestly wear different hats. And that's something that is growing so much in the sports industry is you don't always see, I won't say never, but you don't always see people that just have one job. And we're each a testament to that. So for those that are going to be joining us live, you can add your questions into the chat. We're actually going to have this panel be closed in that sense. So if you have any questions, drop them in the chat, and then we'll be sure to ask them as we're going through. But the first thing I want to start off with, after you both have had a chance, now that you've had a chance to introduce yourself, is what is something that helped you get to where you are today? You know, I think the biggest thing I always come across in conversation is, how do I get there? I have an idea of what I want to do. How do I actually get to where I would like to be in my career? So Ashley, I'll kick it off to you first. You know, talk us through in a quick version, of course, all of our journeys. I want to preface it with this. It's not as easy as like, I wanted to do it, it happened overnight. It took years for us to get to the seats that we are in today. So give us a little bit of a synopsis or summary of kind of what led you to the roles that you hold today.
Absolutely. So I've always been interested in sports, right? I've always talked it. I've always debated it. I've always just had this strong urge to just always be in sports conversations. And about 6 years ago, I kind of, in my LeBron voice, took my talents to social media, right? So, you know, just constantly like tweeting and talking about sports on all of the various platforms. I was on a couple of radio shows, like it was a panel, all ladies panel. Shout out to Mikkel Ramos. I actually was on her live radio show with the Flex Zone. And after that, I just realized, I'm like, you know what? I really want to pursue this. I really want to start doing this full time. And by the grace of God, I happened to link up with Michael Lau, who in turn turned me on to our big brother here, Brian H. Waters. In the meantime of that, I did start doing school for, mass communications. It's important to, make sure that you have your hardware in this business. But man, meeting Brian and getting hooked up with Fox Sports 1340 AM, he was the social media manager there when I first started. And man, just really helped me just elevate my talents and, really showed me through reps, through writing, through, talking, just everything. He's laughing because he know that he had to push me to do that writing thing, man. But just like you mentioned, just years of hard work and being consistent and understanding my role and my lane. That took a few years. I'm still learning that as we speak. But you asked for a quick synopsis, girl. I could go,
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
But that's pretty much how I got started. I knew that I for sure wanted to be one of those individuals that give opinion. And I want people to want my opinion when it comes to sports and, to be able to talk kind of like barbershop style. So I just kind of started from there, hitting events, doing games, and it kind of just skyrocketed from there. So again, thankful to Brian H. and Fox Sports for taking a chance.
Yes. And I'm glad that you shared that, because through each of your stories, and again, like I shared before, of course, the three of us know that this did not happen overnight. It took years and years and years. It took failures, it took setbacks. A lot has happened in order to get to the spot that we're in today. But I think it's also just helpful for those that are watching to be able to hear the fact that it took time and to hear a little bit about your own testimony. So Brian, what about you? What led you to where you're at today as host and working in Spotify and the different roles that you have?
So let's go to, I guess we'll start from the very beginning. I was always somebody who liked to play sports, but eventually I also liked to write when I was in third grade. Shout out to my sister Megan, who's in the chat. She can tell you I used to write stories in those composition notebooks, and I used to love to play it, but realized unlike Renee, I was never going to be a Hall of Famer or All-American anywhere. So I learned quickly, as in 10th grade, okay, you're not going to make the basketball team. So I knew right then and there, I wanted to get in the broadcast side. I've always been a broadcast nerd, especially the wrestling fan in me. I can remember certain calls, like championship calls, and then even baseball. I can remember the night Mark McGwire hit his 60-second home run, and Joe Buck saying, "You'll always remember where you were when you watched this that night." And fast forward going through college, I went to community college, took a break. Don't recommend that for many people. But afterwards, I went to Morgan State, and it was there where I transitioned. Right before Monique Jones at the time she was with the Boston Globe. I believe she's with the Undefeated now. She had recommended going on the production side of things, and it was right at a pivotal moment, literally the week before or a month before I was getting ready to sign up for Morgan State. And so I went on the production side, and I knew I still wanted to do sports and video production. And it was through that and through the National Association of Black Journalism, which she had told me about. And then my mentor, Sam Davis, who was the managing editor of Baltimore Sun, had recommended that program, and it all skyrocketed from there. Going to the conference, I went. When I was there, I talked to ESPN, and it was kind of one of those things how sometimes you just know, I got this. It was a great interview with shout out to Tracy Mack, and then I met my good friend Aaron Hilton. I was like, I'm gonna be there, and that's where kind of how I got my first professional start. And then after I left, it was okay. What else? There's other things. And then prior, I had launched the Wrestling Realm because it was a way for me to practice production, but also really practice, really just do what I love, which is talk about wrestling. Shout out to my co-host, Dwayne. We used this, and it helped us with our resumes. It helped me break in certain doors with Fox Sports, with ESPN, and now with Spotify or Ringer, I was allowed to do that. But it was essentially creating my own lane while I was in college and utilizing that. And that's clearly, I still have the Wrestling Realm, which you can find every week on Wednesdays. Shout out to our third member brother, Hugh Scott, in the chat as well. So, that's, sort of a overview on how I got where I'm at now.
Yeah, and a lot of key things that you've each touched on of somebody taking a chance on you, somebody helping you get there. You each mentioned different people that were pivotal in helping you get started and continue to grow, and even building your own. That those are some key aspects that have helped you get to where you are. So again, I definitely recommend for anybody that is tuning in with us, if you have questions, if you're unsure about something, if you're trying to figure something out, drop those in the chat as we're going through, since we are trying to make this conversation on that sense too, where you can add your questions into the chat. So I know we all have talked about in our own experiences, just the growth that happened over time and having to take that leap of faith. And welcome to those that are just joining in. You just missed my disclaimer, but as you're coming in, please feel free to ask your questions in the chat and drop any questions you have in the chat, as we're going to keep this panel closed in that sense. So chat's wide open, fire away. But in terms of our own experiences, just having an idea, a passion, but not really knowing how to get there. And that's something that's challenging when you're trying to figure out, I know I want to talk sports, barbershop talk. I want to have my own, I want to be able to work in specific aspects of sports, but how do I actually get there? And I feel like a lot of people find themselves stuck with taking that next step. So what are each of your recommendations? And whoever wants to jump in first can. What do you advise for those that are feeling stuck in their career, where you have an end goal in mind of where you're trying to get to, but you're not sure how to take that next step in your career?
You can go ahead, Brian. Since it was ladies first last time.
So I'm going to actually use Ashley as an example. The first thing you want to do is listen. I've loved talking and helping people. I feel like it's my responsibility because I've been blessed with so many people who've helped me along the way. People like Rob Parker, Jerry Bembry, just taking the time out, Eric Dotson, and so many people who will say, hey, you should try this. You should try that. Shout out to one of the founders of NABJ, Dwayne Wickham, taking a chance to listen to what I want to do and then making recommendations. But the thing that helped me get to where I wanted to be was being able to listen and take criticism. Ashley can tell you there's been times where I'm like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And vice versa. It's just because I've been doing this longer, it don't mean she won't call me like, oh, bro, what you thinking? So one of the things you want to do is listen. You want to be able to take criticism, but you can't be shy. Closed mouths don't get fed. You go out, you reach out to people. Hey, I see what you're doing. Obviously be respectful. Don't feel as if people owe you anything. But if that person doesn't help, move on to the next person. Our good brother Mike Patton is in the building tonight. He's another one who, same thing. We feedback off each other, listening, taking advice. So that's the main thing I always say is listen, take advice, because trust me, I got examples of people who don't listen and it don't always end up very nice. They get stuck in the same place.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to piggyback off of, Brian and saying, with the taking up the advice, just listen. You don't want to be, I never want to be the smartest person in the room. I intentionally surround myself with folks that know more than I do. Renee, Brian, shout out to Kelsey Nelson, Brandon Williams, those are my core folks. You know what I'm saying? Literally, because it's so refreshing to see how they grind and, kind of get it out the mud. It makes me want to level up. So your circle is super important. Those folks that you have around you are super important, because in my 5 or my 4, I'm the 5th, my 4 will never, ever let me be complacent. They just won't allow it. If they see me stagnant, they're going to be like, where's the episode? Where's the podcast? How come you haven't done this? I haven't heard it. Let me just say this in a while. You're not tweeting as much. Like they're literally going to call me out on it. So having the correct, but when they say that, you have to be able to take that criticism. It's very important to be able to take that and apply. So that was piggybacking off of you saying, being able to take advice. I would also say a lot of time people kind of get stuck because perhaps they are looking to be someone other than themselves, maybe. It's very important to find your lane. It's very important to find your lane and be true to yourself. Mm-hmm. And when you find your lane and you become true to yourself, you realize, can't nobody do what I do. This is my lane. And you kind of propel yourself unknowingly to another level, just simply being confident in who you are and what you do, and can't nobody do what you do like you do. You know what I'm saying? That has worked for me beautifully. They are a testament to it. I initially came into this like, oh, I have to be this or I have to be that. Shout out to Vashti. Shout out to she's the CEO or the founder of Carolina Blitz. She was so influential in telling me you have to be you, and if they don't accept you as you, at least you can go down saying that you were you. Like that's the biggest thing. So don't overthink. Make sure that you're around folks that are not going to let you be stagnant or complacent if they see you being that. And make sure that you're being true to yourself. Make sure that you find your lane.
Oh, can I add one thing too? Because when you was talking, actually reminded me of an example. When somebody's trying to help you, listen. Sometimes it's gonna be that tough love, and Ashley knows she's given it, she's done that many conversations. And it's like one of those things where she will tell somebody, and anybody know Ashley, she can be hardcore with it. Like, no, you need to do such and such, and this is why you need to do that. Even on the outside of the sports side, for me, I'm saying I don't get too personal, but there's been times where she's like told me like, yo, no, you figure this out. And I understand when somebody's taking the time to give you advice, clearly they care, because some of these celebrities that you like on TV, you might ask them for advice. Oh, that's good. That's good, keep it moving, because that's a get out of my face. But if they've taken the time to tell you what is wrong, clearly it's because they want you to get better. Or even if they want you to mess up, use that as motivation to get better.
Amen to all that. So again, there were some really great points that were just brought up. And I apologize, my computer was dying and my charger was not plugged in. But but no,
technology.
I know. I was like, what's going on here? So no, when you think about it, it's surrounding yourself with the right people that are going to challenge you, that are going to test you, that are going to check you too, to make sure that you are continuing to push yourself. If you have a bunch of yes men around you, in the sense of friends that are going to just co-sign on everything that you do, they're not going to help you in that sense, because now when you need that feedback, when you need that tough love and that criticism, you're not going to have that. And then, of course, you are a direct reflection of the people that are around you. So make sure you have that diversity. You have people that are in different levels of their career that are going to bring different things into your life, but also being able to pave your own lane. And I actually was going to say the same thing, Ashley, because something that I feel like is so hard, especially in the digital age that we're in, is to be comfortable being in your own shoes, in your own skin, because we find ourselves comparing ourselves to others. And we're all guilty of this, myself very much included, where you find yourself comparing yourself to this person you see on social media, or this person because they're in this job that I want, or this, someone else, when in reality, your journey is really your own. So if you are committed to what you want, 100%, you can't do anything half behind. If you're 100% committed to whatever that goal is, you're going to get there. It might not happen overnight. It might not even happen when you want to. There will be setbacks. There will be challenges that test you along the way. But if you are sticking to who you are and what's aligned with your ethics and your values, that's when, as Ashley and Brian are talking about, when you get that opportunity, or even if you don't get that opportunity, at least you've given your best, not trying to be a carbon copy of somebody else. So with so many different roles in sports, as the three of us are trying to echo, is make sure you figure out what you enjoy doing and you pursue that heavily. Don't do what looks fun. Don't do what looks easy. Don't do what just looks glamorous because you're around celebrities or whatever else. Do what you actually enjoy. If it's writing, go write your butt off. If you want to be on air, go be on air. If you want to produce, produce. But there are so many different roles in sports, and sometimes people get lost in the sauce because they're so busy trying to chase something that they're really not. So for each of you, how have you dealt with adversity? There are a lot of different challenges, setbacks, failures as you're going through that test you to keep going. How have you found it to be helpful to work through those challenges when it does feel like you can't do anything right? You're not getting the job you want. You're getting rejected. How do you best work through those challenges in your career?
I'll go.
Go for it.
I'd say number one, prayer, first of all.
Amen.
Definitely been some nights when a sister had to pray and just, ask, like, am I supposed to be here? Like, am I really doing what I'm supposed to, am I on the right path? So I've had many of those nights. I think one of the most important things that I've done, like facing adversity, I hate to go back to, but it's just so important that the people that you are around, I have to say the people that I surround myself with see something in me that I don't necessarily always see in myself. I've been taught to be consistent, persistent. I've been taught to, you could get 1,000 no's, man. You know what I'm saying? And what's for you is for you. It's not going to miss you. So I always kind of carry the mentality of like the glass half full. I try to, at least I try to be super optimistic. But consistency is key. Even when you're in those moments of adversity, like Renee was saying, you do whatever feels right to you. You do whatever you're good at, whatever you love, whatever you enjoy. So even in those moments of adversity, if you've applied to be a writer somewhere or an editor somewhere, something like that, be consistent. Don't stop just because somebody gave you a no. You keep on recording those podcasts. You keep on writing. You keep on sideline reporting. You just that kind of takes your mind maybe off the rejection a little bit, I guess, in a sense, to just keep grinding, being a woman in sports, being a Black woman in sports. And Renee, I know that you can testify to this as well. I mean, we just deal with so many uphill battles. You always feel like you have to work 30 times harder than even males in this business because it's male dominated. You know what I'm saying? Like the men feel like they belong here, right? You got to work 30 times harder, man. So, it's important to have tough skin. It's important to understand what you're walking into. It's important to understand where you are. Unfortunately, in society, this is just where we are. We're women. And then you add being a Black woman on top of that, like, you're going to go through some adversity. That doesn't mean that you quit. That doesn't mean that you stop. You keep it moving. I don't know. It's not a tough question for me because I'm kind of built a little different. Like my skin is super tough because I anticipate, I just know like how crazy this industry can be. So I don't know. Prayer is a big thing though, y'all. Like I got to pray my way through some situations sometimes. I swear.
Oh man, what about you, Brian? Prayer definitely is a great answer.
Yeah,
it keeps you level, man. It keeps you level. I swear, keep you humble.
Yeah, prayer, but also, just sometimes you gotta like recharge. There's times where you can get burnt out. Generally, I didn't do it this year, but generally the month of December, like past 2 years, I would take time off from like podcasts, like the wrestling realm. Like, all right, like in the wrestling world, from the second week in December on, it's kind of slow, and then because then next thing you know, you're getting ready for the Royal Rumble, and then you in the thick of, like right now, we're in the thick of WrestleMania season. So I know, okay, this is that time coming. So like in sports, if your specialty is baseball, soon as the World Series is over, you want to slow down. If it's basketball, soon as the NBA Finals, football, the Super Bowl, so a lot of times. But then if you're hitting those roadblocks, You have to say, okay, is this the time of season where I need to like constantly like push through, or can I just take a step back? And then obviously your network is everything. Hence, like why Renee created this. Because there's a lot of, especially if you're a part of the Slack channel, you'll see there's a lot of great people in there that you could talk to, that you can vent to. And don't always got to be Renee because she got a million jobs, but there's other people like I see Tim Claiborne in the chat. It's a lot of people that you can talk to, and Josh Kirby and Mike Patton, where you find somebody because somebody's gone through what you've gone through, whether it's a creative stumbling block or something. Somebody has gone through, so you go through it and you say, okay, can somebody help me with this? Don't be afraid to reach out. At the end of the day, when you're going through adversity, don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be ashamed of it, because we all go through it, and we all gonna continue to go through it. You don't think Stephen A. Smith goes through adversity? He just talk loud over it, but I'm pretty sure he has some of those moments as well.
Yeah. And I again, more great points. And before we move on to the question that's in the chat, I just want to add a couple of things that I feel like have helped me. And one, actually, you both touched on this, but having balance in your schedule is so important. Finding time to shut down, to refresh, finding time to do other things. I even have had to learn that as much as we have goals and we're so career ambitious and driven, you have to make time to live. None of this matters if you're stressed out. None of this matters if you get that job and you're burnt out. You want to make sure that when that opportunity comes, you can step into it as best as possible. That means you're prepared on the professional side, but you're in a good mental space where you're ready for that. Because the other part of this that I've definitely learned that I kind of use as motivation is the more you climb, the steeper it gets. Think about actual climbing. If you're climbing a mountain, the base of it is easy. As you climb higher, it's only going to get tougher. So if you're not mentally refreshed as you make that climb, you're not going to make it. And that's the harsh reality of it. So I've even had to learn, okay, things are getting tough for a reason. If it's getting tough, that means I'm getting closer. So it's not always a bad thing when you have those challenges, when you have those setbacks, when you have opportunities that don't pan out the way that you want to. In reality, it could actually mean you're getting closer. And I look at, full disclosure, I've quit jobs. I've had jobs that didn't work out around COVID. I've had opportunities that did not pan out the way I wanted to. And looking back, I'm thankful it didn't. I'm appreciative I got those rejections. I got rejected from every job, a lot of jobs, I should say, including Uber. Uber did not hire me. And I will openly tell people that, because that's their loss. I would have been a great Uber driver, but that's their loss. And you know what? In the long run, it worked out for the best that I did not get hired by Uber. So there are
Renee driving Uber.
I would be right there with my bottle of waters for people and my snacks and my great playlist. But the point is, every rejection is not a bad thing. And this is actually a big reason why I started writing, why I created Planted Not Buried, because of this exact mindset shift. If you can understand that sometimes you need red lights to have the green lights in your life, you will understand that every challenge is not meant to mess you up or to slow you down. And then the last part about that is control what you can control. So, there are so many different aspects, and this is a great transition into the question that Josh has in the chat. There are a lot of different aspects of this industry you can control. Planted Not Buried is in my control. I created it as my vision because it's something that I wanted to do, that allowed me to tap into who I am, that allowed me to even have all these great people in the room for a conversation. Control what you can control. If it's a podcast, if it's a website, a portfolio, each of us have things that are ours, that regardless if the pandemic shuts the world down again, we get fired, hired, whatever, we have it in our control. So find ways to create something that's yours, that you now can pour into, that it aligns with who you are. You can build it up. It's your baby that nobody can take from you, that you can make sure you're always having in your back pocket. Okay, so I know we do have some great points that are being dropped in the chat. I love the vulnerability and transparency that I'm seeing. But we do also have a question from Josh around podcasts. What are your thoughts on the podcast industry, both as a hobby and part of a major sports network, or something along those lines? Because at least for me, I've seen a huge spike in podcasting recently. We all have podcasts. What are your thoughts? Ashley, I'll start off with you on the benefits of having a podcast. Oh, you're still muted. Sorry.
Don't want me talking, guys. She
There you
doesn't want me
go.
talking
I
tonight.
need to be bashed now. What are your thoughts on podcasts?
Yeah. Podcast, yeah, they definitely have skyrocketed since COVID, right? It's such an outlet. You know what I mean? Like you mentioned, Renee, it's something that's yours. It's something that no matter what's going on, you can pour into that. I absolutely love podcasts. And I mean, and I should definitely do it much, much more. Like I could podcast like every day if I had the time. I have 2 kids, so it's a little tough. But I absolutely love podcasts, and I love to talk about sports. I can podcast all by myself. My podcast is, I am solo for the most part. I can just have a conversation with sports, on sports by myself. But it's super important, again, to, have that outlet like Renee is talking about. It's just that you pretty much summed it up, sis. Having that outlet, having something to be able to showcase your talents. You never know. Brian has taught me there's 2 things that Brian has taught me with podcasting. 3, be consistent. Number 1. Number 2, you never know who's listening. Number 3, so be consistent. And then number 3, don't worry about the numbers. Like, don't worry about how many folks, if you got 5 people listening, so what? Just imagine that there's 5 people in the room. You only got 10 or 15 people. There are 10 or 15 people in a room that literally came to hear you speak, like just you. So podcasting is huge. It's becoming such a big deal in the world. Folks love to listen to podcasts. Folks love to listen to sports via podcast. So if that's something that you like to tap into, just make sure that you are promoting it well. Make sure you have a great idea, rundown of how you want it to be. Make sure that it reflects you and what you're looking to show the world about yourself. And again, Brian H. Waters' 3 core values: be consistent. Don't worry about the numbers, because that's gonna come. As long as you're consistent, the numbers are gonna come. Don't even trip about the numbers. And you just never know who's listening. All it takes is one person to say, oh man, this is dope. Like, and this person could be in a seat that you didn't even imagine, and they came across and heard your podcast. So just be the best at your craft that you can be. I love podcasting.
Yeah, one of the things I wrote down so I wouldn't forget: only the strong survive. And the reason why I said that, because like you said, there's been a spike of podcasts during the pandemic, and I said, here, everybody and their mother want to start a podcast. Leave it to the professionals. Because people see this idea, and the first thing they say is, oh yeah, I'm gonna make a podcast so I can make some money. I'm gonna create a YouTube channel. And you'd be surprised. I think there's like over so many millions of podcasts that's in Apple, and there's like so many hundreds of thousands that's inactive. There's so many inactive YouTube channels. My cousin, who has no background in media, last year created a YouTube channel, which is essentially a video podcast. And he was just talking about hip hop, street culture, stuff that I don't understand. But he asked me, and I gave him the same advice I gave Ashley. He's consistent. He got well over probably 300 or 400 videos, and he started in June. And now, just to see what he's been doing is something that's positive. So I really enjoy him. Also, so a couple of days ago, I'm gonna flex real quick. I was talking to the greatest wrestler in the world, by the name of Bryan Danielson, and I wasn't talking, I was recording. But what he said was that whatever industry you're a part of, you need to consume it. He's a wrestler, even though he's the best in the world. He watches 30 minutes of wrestling. Ashley know where I'm going with this one. He watches 30 minutes of wrestling 5 days a week at least. I always tell people, if you want a podcast, listen to podcasts. Before when I decided, like, so we had the Wrestling Realm as a show, YouTube based, whatever. We couldn't, every time, we took some time to try to get some people over on Fox Sports. Didn't work out. So, that took away. And I was like, man, we could have really been doing the show all this time. But I told Dwayne, I said, I'm gonna start a podcast. And I said it's gonna be a part of the brand, whatever. One of the shows I listened to was Maybe I'm Crazy, but that's with Joy Taylor. And I like listening the way, it was structured. Then I listened to the undefeated ESPN The Plug, which was, our good friend Tarika and Justin Tinsley and a few other people that's names escaping me. But I was like consuming their shows. Now, I had no plans on doing a sports show. I wanted a wrestling show. So I listened to a wrestling show. So I listened to all different types just to see, okay, how is it structured, the layout, the time, So anything I always tell people, consume what you want to have, You might, find something similar. Like I listen to probably, I'm doing two shows between the wrestling realm and then Mac Mania. I'm producing 2 shows a week, sometimes 90% of the Mac Mania shows I'm on. And then I'm still listening to other shows. I'm listening, Mike Patton always getting guests, and see for me, and this is the last point I'll make. I don't a lot of times, so I can't do Twitter spaces because I can't stand the Lamar Jackson unadulterated hate. So I don't jump into them too much. But what I do is I do enjoy hearing my friends' opinions. So if you got these shows that's on TV that's talking, the same thing about sports, and then you have your friends who have a show, and while I'm somebody who talks on the phone, I'm not gonna call every single one of my friends and be like, hey, what did you think about so and so? So I can just listen to their show and get that information. Ashley, every week I'm like, listen to her show, see what she got to say, because I want to hear like their opinions. Or if I want some inspiration, if I want to learn about something, I'll listen to Beyond the Headlines, because Renee is going to dig deeper into what the trending topic is around this person. So,
Beyond the headline.
So
I missed that.
And I think a podcast is a way of one, just, you listen to them, but it's also a way, you can, get your friends' opinions and stuff. So I enjoy them, but I do think the market is saturated. But what I'll say to people all the time, don't let that stop you. Just because there's a million, why can't be a million more? Because some of them will fall off anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, a lot of what you said, I could not agree more. There were a couple points that I wanted to add before we move on to the next question I saw in the chat. One is, one of the biggest things that I found very impactful is to speak out loud what you want to do. So I know even in the chat, I'm seeing different people are kind of talking through their struggles and things that they're trying to figure out. You never know the value of who can help. Everybody knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. Everybody has insight. Everybody has advice, experiences that they can share with you. So one of the biggest benefits, I think, of podcasting is it's an extension of that. You now really can put into existence and start manifesting these different aspects of who you are. So if now you're creating your show the way you want to, that it aligns with your career goals, Brian having a wrestling show, Ashley having more of a sports hot takes show. Mine is a little bit deeper of getting into storylines. Our shows directly reflect our career ambitions in a sense. So you're now having an extension of you that's out there, that's you're creating, that allows people to know, okay, this is what Brian's all about, Ashley's all about, Renee's all about. It's a part of your identity. It's a part of building your brand, which is also just as important in this industry. So not only are you speaking things out loud, but you're actually manifesting it and putting it into action. And then it does also help with networking. We each have had some great guests on our shows and great people that we've met in the industry, professionals that we've been able to connect with through our podcast. So I always tell people, if nothing else, it's a great way to say, you know what, hey, I've got a podcast. I love what you do. I'd love to have you on my show. Now you have a chance to talk with that person. You can exchange emails or phone numbers, and bam, you've networked with them. Instead of just the cold email or cold call of, hi, I'm Renee, and I would like to hear more about your career. So it actually gives you a way, in a lazy way almost, to now be able to network with other people. And then the other thing is it's reps, especially if you want to be on air in any role. A podcast, when you now have to be the producer, you have to promote it, you have to figure out the rundown, you have to edit it, you have to also be the one hosting and steering the show, gives you those great hands-on reps that you are going to need in this industry, that now you can say, you know what, I've built this up. Like Ashley was saying, it started off with X amount of followers. Now I have this amount of subscribers on Anchor. I've got this amount of followers on social media, and I built this up from the start of whatever month to now. So it gives you actual content you could add to your resume, your portfolio, to show that you are serious about this industry. If you are committing to that time, it shows you are very serious about this industry. So there's a lot of benefits to podcasting, depending on which direction you want to take it. At the end of the day, from everybody's points, the biggest thing is you can take it the direction you want to that best aligns with whatever you're wanting to do in your career. So I know we had another question that Rafiq was asking about getting adjusted to in-person coverage of sports and virtual. So how did you guys, and I know he asked myself and Ashley, but Brian, of course, with you even producing shows virtually as well, adjusting to the sports industry in the virtual space, as well as the in-person coverage that we're now working back into. What are your thoughts on that? And I will start off with you, Brian.
It's actually fun. The virtual part is fun just because it's convenient. It's really convenient for guests, especially like in the wrestling world, because they can kind of be where they are. And then, just kind of getting back out there. It was an adjustment for me just because it's something that's like, when you're doing recording a podcast in person, you got to make sure like you got to adjust the mic levels, right? Because if you're using like a voice recorder like this, right? And you got two microphones and you got to make sure that, all right, the mics aren't too loud so they aren't feeding back off of each other. So that was the fun adjustment to say, telling guests, because you also got to be assertive too. You got to tell a guest, like, I'm telling WWE superstars, don't bang on the table. You imagine have to tell, yeah, because it's going to show up on the podcast. So, but overall, it's definitely an adjustment. But I will say, like, the virtual space gives you an opportunity to really showcase, like, okay, you know what you're doing, but also taking pride in your space. I mean, clearly, y'all can see I'm wrestling. Like, you can see that this is all done on purpose, so they can say, all right, I know that he takes his show seriously. He taking the presentation seriously because he's making sure that everything like reflects, that you can tell I'm in a space conducive to what I'm doing. So that's another thing that's been helping. Like, you see like just different people, and obviously everybody's not going to have the same background, but if somebody says, well, why are they doing the show? Like, case example, John Wall. I was so irritated the time he was playing spades. Wow. And granted, he's the talent, right? But that just to me showed the disrespect that he had for the show that he was on. Like, you sitting there, let me just do this ish real quick. Boom, boom, boom. So the same thing with the host. If you sitting up there, you trying to conduct the show, you trying to cover a sport, and you sitting there eating chicken wings in your kitchen, then PR people are like, all right, you know what? You're not invited back.
Ashley,
I think that I love the virtual aspect of interviews. Okay. We have all had discussions, and all of you guys that have been on Zoom or whatever for work or whatever virtually, you just have your top on, maybe some pajama bottoms at the bottom. Come on, like we all love this virtual thing. And I feel like with COVID was such a blessing and a curse. I feel like COVID, in a sense, reset the whole landscape of like sports media, because it literally forced everybody to do exactly what we're doing now from the comforts of your own home and really show me what you're like, really showcase your talent. Like you said, be your own producer. You can't depend on the folks that's in the studio every day, that, you know what I'm saying? Like it kind of like balanced or leveled the playing field a bit. If I can't get out to LA to do an interview with Stephen Curry, I can tell him, come on, let's Zoom. If I happen to nail an interview with Steph Curry, it's so convenient. Like Brian talked about with the convenience. So that's just my personal experience. I mean, there are folks that I have met and folks that I've had as guests on my shows and folks that have become mentors and, things like that to me that I'm not sure it would be the case if it wasn't for us being in this virtual space that we're in now. I really don't, I can't say for sure.
COVID definitely made people step their game up.
Yeah, definitely. So I love the fact of us kind of easing back into it, but I also love even more that this virtual aspect of things isn't going away either. Like it's really gonna be, it's incorporated now in everything we do. It's just going to be a part of, what we do going forward. So it's not going away fully anyway. So, I mean, I absolutely love it. I mean, I got pajama pants on right now and I'm just letting y'all know.
Yep. I think the biggest thing is like the fact we're even having this conversation from all around the country. The virtual world has opened up a lot of access. I know even I've been able to now attend a lot of press conferences and over Zoom. But even also opportunities. I could honestly say, like, I started calling Premier League games internationally in Europe that I was calling from my house. So there are even opportunities and whole jobs that have now opened up. We each have roles that we have and jobs that we have that are remote.
See,
so
that's Hall of Fame status right there.
Yes, there are.
I see you, sis. Come on.
Calling games from
y'all, did y'all peep the flex?
Right.
Did you peep the subtle flex? She's
it's not about that, but
that's why she's
start calling some international soccer games in Europe on my own house.
All American.
I love it.
There are different ways that this virtual world, and I think that, like Ashley was saying, it's a blessing and a curse. If you take advantage of it, you can now have access to other athletes, coaches, teams, league, sports, and jobs at the end of the day. There are a lot of virtual jobs that are now available because of, thank you all in the chat, thank you. Some virtual jobs are available because of COVID. So another thing that has changed drastically, I'm gonna kind of piggyback off of that as we're wrapping up. I knew this hour would fly by. Even networking, I know Mike Patton is asking specifically around how to go about getting interviews, but I'm gonna take it a step further. What do you guys feel is the best way to make those connections? Whether it's for an interview, to network, for a mentor, anytime that you're reaching out to connect with somebody, this will be their last question. What do you feel are the best ways to go about authentically, organically making that connection with somebody else? And I'm gonna let you go first, Brian, because Ash, I see you're deep in thought.
It's one of the things is you got to be genuine, right? You have to do your research first. Make sure that you guys see what exactly has this person done that can help you get to where you want to get to, right? So like my mentor, Sam Davis, he's the I'll just say I grew up in, we're in the same church, and he was somebody, like, obviously came from, he grew up in the church way before I did, but I watched that he was somebody who was doing what I wanted to do. He was writing about sports. I saw a lot of people have college degrees, but didn't seem happy, but he genuinely looked happy doing what he wanted to do. So at 12, 13, 14, I'm like going to him, picking his brain. And the coolest thing was when my Ravens was on the path to Super Bowl 35, he was covering the team. So I'm like trying to get like, okay, so what did you do there? And you're going to Tennessee, going to Oakland, and then going ultimately to Tampa Bay. So, with him, it was fine with what we wanted to do. When I was at Morgan State, I remember when Jerry Bembry came there as a professor, they was like, yeah, he's fresh from ESPN. I'm like, oh, I need to talk to him because that's where I'm trying to go to, So it was the same thing. It was finding out people now, like Rob Parker. It was just like we was at that Saturday night, and anybody been to NABJ, the Saturday night is the calm down night. We was in this was in Orlando, and he was talking to me. Shout out to CJ and Brandon Crawford. He was just sitting around talking to us. And then, mind you, this was coming right after, like 2 or 3 weeks after the whole RG3 thing. And he was like, just being a regular person. And then he said, hey, take my number. So it was like he offered. And then, you keep in contact with those people. So the thing about going about building those relationships is, one, finding out what they did, doing your research. Don't just because their name, they could be a name, but if they don't, if they don't mesh well, because that's what they you're ultimately asking people for their time. You can always give somebody money back. You can never give somebody their time back. So finding out how they can help you, also figuring, being genuine, listening, and just being respectful.
Great points, Brian. I would say because
I'm glad that got your approval.
Right. I felt like Renee just now, like, Kurt, you're not the host.
Fine.
I'm sorry, like, oh my bad, I'm sorry. I would say now, since we're coming, two things. I would say now, since we're kind of turning the corner a bit with COVID, wherever you are, if you can get involved in any kind of local sports media circle, right? So NABJ, they have different chapters in, all over the country. If you're interested, that'll put you around some like-minded individuals who in turn can, you don't know who they know. You know what I mean? Like NABJ.
They need to sponsor this.
Yeah, definitely. National Association of Black Journalists, for those that don't know, have really blown the doors off for me, seriously. And I mean, I think maybe I knew Brian maybe 3-4 years before I even went to my first one. Understand that man was talking about this familyhood from the day that I met him, and I just hadn't been able to make it to the conventions. I met Renee there. You see why I'm at after meeting Renee there. I'm just saying, you have seriously, you have to make sure that you're putting yourself in these rooms that you deserve to be in. You know what I'm saying? So I would say that's a great way to network. Find those networking events. Social media, huge. I'm huge on social media. Social media is probably going to be my number one. A lot of the people, the sports media that are on TV, folks that I'm in athletes, folks that I'm in contact with personally, like that was via social media. That was being genuine, like Brian said, via social media. That was being myself via social media. I mean, it's just too big of a thing these days to not include social media and just a lot of what you do. Networking, promoting your brand, making
it's
money.
Free advertising.
Literally. So I would say those two things, just putting yourself around the right people and listening, like Brian said, to their words of advice.
Okay, so as we wrap up here, if you haven't been paying attention for the first 54 minutes, please do so now, because I'm going to wrap up a lot of the different points that were made throughout the course of this conversation. There are still some other great questions that are dropping in. So I'm first going to answer the question around mentoring, building relationships, getting interviews. The key word is being organic, not looking for handouts. If you go to somebody, let me actually take a step back. I can tell you directly how people have approached me. I see you work at ESPN. I want to work at ESPN. Can you get me a job? I don't know you at all. Or I see you work you're an on-air, an anchor reporter, whatever title they want to put in there. Here's all of the work I've done. Can you watch it? Thanks. If you don't know me by now, I've got a lot of things going on. So yes, I can watch it, but I don't know if I have time to watch it. So when somebody reaches out to me, and honestly, even the people that reach out and just send me a quick snippet, I'll probably still watch it and give them feedback, but I'm probably also not going to keep in touch with you after. You're not building a relationship. You can get the feedback. You're getting that initial response, but you want to build long-term relationships. The three of us, like I was saying in the intro, these are not only colleagues of mine, they are friends, where I know if I have a question about anything, not even just professional, I can go to them. You want to build real organic relationships that now, if an opportunity opens, and I've done this for people, and we've all had people that have helped us with this, an opportunity presents itself, a job opening, a panel opportunity to speak, an event that you are the person that they are thinking of. That is how you get your name into rooms you have not set foot into yet. You've got to build that though. And if you're so shallow in how you're reaching out to others, you're now going to be blocking opportunities. So yes, we all want these top interviews. We all want jobs. We all want money. We all want to move up the ladder. But if you go into it straight off with just the ask, you're going to cut off a lot more. So build those actual relationships. Like Brian was saying, do your homework, learn about people, talk to them about who they are. They're also people. They're not just the person to get you a job. They're also people. So if you want to mentor, you want to interview somebody, you want to even just network with somebody, build that relationship in an organic way. And then like Rob Parker did with Brian, they might be opening now. Hey, here's my email, shoot me a message. And I do that all the time. I'd rather you take time to get to know me. And then I know you're not going to just always be coming to me with a handout. So building relationships, definitely making sure that you are getting the reps, whether that's through a podcast, through a YouTube show, through Twitter Spaces. There are so many different ways to create content that are free, okay? Free. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars to get to the job you want. Use what you have in your own back pocket, the different digital resources, the different Facebook groups and social media groups to now network, to be able to have the conversations with different people and to build. Also make sure you're studying. If you want to build a podcast, how do you know how to build a podcast if you've never listened to a podcast? If you want to be a sports reporter, how do you know how to be a sports reporter if you're not studying? And there's a difference between watching and studying. Actually pay attention to things that they're doing well, they're not doing well, things you like, you don't like, things you can use. So make sure that you are studying the game, okay? Anybody that can tell you for any industry, studied the game. Kobe studied MJ. You know, all the people that are great in their respective roles have taken time to learn. And that's my next point, learning from others. Building that circle, people around you that are going to push you, motivate you, and even encourage you, support you, be there for you. So now if you're having a bad day where you feel like you've stumbled over every single word on air, you maybe did something terrible, your support group is going to be there to pick you up. So learn from others, but also keep that circle of people that are going to motivate you and help you grow. And then the other thing is to speak it and manifest it. Don't be afraid to put those goals out there. Put them out into the universe. And actually, while we are doing this, I want you guys to drop in the chat before Brian as Brian and Ashley are sharing a little bit about where you can follow them, drop in the chat what that goal is. There's a reason why you're here tonight. Everything happens for a reason. And like Ashley was saying earlier, I really do live by the idea that nothing that is for you will miss you. And whatever misses you is not for you. So there's a reason this did not miss you and that you are here. So drop in the chat, whatever that goal is that you have, something that you're working towards, so we can start speaking it into existence. Because if you're not saying it, how are people going to know you want that? So now if that job opens and I know you want to be a sports reporter, I know this is somebody I can definitely refer to for this role. Find that balance in your career so that you have time off. And then now you can focus. When it's game time, lights, camera, action, you're ready to go. Okay, so Brian and Ashley, I thank you both so much for taking time to join us. So I want you to just also share with everybody that is in the audience a little bit about where they can follow you, drop your handles. Everybody that's in the room, also be sure to drop your handles as you're dropping those goals we're going to manifest. Drop your handles. Let's all make sure to support each other, follow each other, be guests on each other's show. Make sure you're staying connected. So Ashley, you go first. Where can we follow?
Yeah, really quick. Sorry, sis. Just to piggyback, manifestation is oh my gosh. I'm so happy that I'm just sitting here thinking that I am in awe. I really think that I have literally spoken into existence and manifested everything that has come my way. I remember being at a Wizards game and sitting, I had got season tickets from somebody that one of my patients at the eye doctors that I used to work at, she had season tickets. She invited me that night. And I remember literally sitting behind the media desk because that's where her seats were. And I looked over to her and I said to her, I'm gonna be sitting in those seats one day. And maybe by the next season, literally where her seats were in section 106, those media seats are the media seats that Fox Sports 1340 AM was sitting in. And I was literally sitting in those seats the next year. I kid you not. I'm talking like literal manifestation. So having said that, make sure that you guys follow me on social media. You can follow me on Twitter, on Instagram at AshleyBaker_21, on Facebook, Ashley Baker. I do have my podcast about nothing but sports. I am recording, Brian H. Woods, this is for you. I'm recording my new episode tomorrow. So it will drop on Wednesday. I'm back, baby. About Nothing But Sports, Spotify, Apple, wherever you like to listen to your podcast is where you can find that podcast. And I also do Twitter Spaces 3 times a week. It's pretty dope. It's pretty, I'm just saying, I'm being called I'm being called the Twitter space queen, guys. So make sure that you guys tap in to the Twitter spaces. It's pretty dope. Renee, thanks again for having me on, sis.
Of course, Brian.
Well, you can follow me at Brian H. Waters. That is BRIAN H. Gotta always include the H. Waters, water like you drink, add the S. You can also follow me at Wrestling Realm. I don't know if you can see how it's spelled, but Realm with a W. Shout out to my mother for the alliteration. And then also follow It's MacMania and follow Ringer Wrestling. And then also catch the shows on all podcasts and platforms. I will say though, and I'm not just playing home team here, if you have Spotify and if you catch the Wrestling Realm, you can actually watch it on the Spotify app, because when you upload the video, it allows you to watch the video on the app. So you could do that, as well as one of these days, Breaking Through the Glass Ceilings will return. I just got to get, I say it because as I was getting on Ashley, I've been having so much podcasts. I was like, all right, but I'll get that. That'll be back soon. But yeah, so you can catch me there. You can also check out some of my production work and photos. If you're in the Baltimore, DC area, you need a photo shoot, B Waters Productions. Shout out to Ashley Baker, one of my customers and clients. So
be there soon.
Yep. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, honestly, Google me and everything will come up.
Can I just plug in? Follow BetQL as well. I gotta have y'all follow my employers. If you're into sports betting, our models give you so much. We have over 100,000 models every day. What will hit, what player will hit, what team, what the numbers look like. So follow the BetQL on Twitter, and you can also download the app BetQL, BETQL. Sorry, I had to plug that in, sis.
Check them out, guys, because they're doing great work across all of their content that they're creating. And I hope that you guys are feeling inspired. I really do thank you for taking time to join us in this conversation. Honestly, Planted Not Buried, we talk about manifestation, is something that 6 years ago I wrote out as a plan. And I remember talking to my mom about it and saying, this is something I want to build, a platform to give a voice for the voiceless, to connect with others. And here we are. So back to what we even started with. It doesn't happen overnight. And there have been a lot of changes in my life that led me to this point. The book that I'm dropping manifested, the career that I have manifested, a lot of things that we are all living today. And ironically, I weirdly just posted this as my Instagram caption yesterday. This is odd. A lot of things that we are walking in today are things that we once prayed for. So keep praying. Whatever it is that you are working towards, that goal that you're dropping in the chat, it might look different. That's the key thing, though, that we struggle with. Like sometimes we have this idea and we envision it's going to be this way, but honestly, it probably is going to be bigger than that. So don't be so afraid of the possibilities that you block those blessings. Okay, so be open to pivoting, be open to adjusting. The pandemic made us all pivot about a 180 at least. Be open to having to pivot in your career, and know that whatever you are writing, journaling, praying on, speaking to others, it's going to happen if you stay the course. Okay, so this conversation today is a step closer towards you being in that. Hopefully it's encouraged you, it's motivated you, given you some tips, maybe some networking, that some way today is hopefully helping you get closer. So you can always check me out at Renee P. Washington across everything. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, my website, reneepwashington.com. Planted Not Buried has a lot more in store for the year. We've got more events for you, more opportunities to learn, to grow, because that's what we're all about: empowering, educating, and inspiring. And I hope you felt all of that in this conversation. So thank you for being a part of my vision. And I hope that this can help you get a little bit closer to yours. So have a great evening, everybody. And I look forward to seeing you more and seeing how you all continue to blossom into those goals that we just dropped in the chat. Have a good one.